pals, Insomnia from UnrealTek.net again in the fourth video on making a Battlefield 2 style game clone in Unreal Engine 4 using networking. We might as well get a little base character started today. I feel a first-person character with the option for a third-person view would be ideal, obviously, because first-person shooter games are like a standard. Having third-person would be nice for both options like configuration and in instances, say, if you're in vehicles or something and you would want an outside view with a different camera. If time permits, I've modeled a little 3-inch mortar too, so we could start testing mounted weapons replication and ballistics with weapons, which I think could be fun. So anyways, open up the project or Unreal, and remember, create your way, and let's get started. So under our stock assets, we have our first person BP. I think that would be a good place to start. So much so I think I'm gonna duplicate it. I'm gonna call it BP base character. I think that would work just fine. And I'm gonna move that into our blueprints folder. So move there, check for redirectors, none, perfect. So we'll close that out. We'll go to blueprints. And so we have our BP base character. And I'm going to open it up. So we have all the stock input. What I like to do, we don't have an input action to fire. We may as well make that right now. Project settings, input, action mappings, fire. And we'll set that to left mouse button. Yeah, what I like to do with a stock project like this is take all of these inputs, create a new graph I call stock template input, and then paste it in there just to kind of get out of my way. In fact, I'm going to make it shorter and go stock input. In fact, while I'm at it, under my brainstorming file that I haven't really gone over 100% yet, I created some blueprint fundamentals that we should kind of practice. General blueprinting fundamentals that I feel I should try to keep in mind and try. I'll emphasize while we go about it. Watching pre and post conditions to prevent bugs in large blueprint systems with lots of functions, event dispatchers, so on and so forth. We want to create as much modularity as possible, creating base classes and extending upon them, and try to create object-oriented designs. We want to prevent duplicating code, for example, setting health in 3 different places instead of using a function to set health. So you will use functions, we'll search for duplicates and create solutions if we find them. We want to comment major parts during recording like this, blueprints general practice, and comment more if time allows. We want to use function libraries, macro libraries for repeating similar and also helpful methods, statements, whatever you want to call them. We want to use event dispatchers and VPIs to our advantage whenever possible. We don't want to try to work on too many ideas at once. We want to use isValids and switch has authority in abundance to make sure nothing will break in that way, and it will throw errors if something's not working. We want to, kind of building on that, we want to create redundancy where possible. And we want to try to remember to use hotkeys to save time. For example, F7 to compile a blueprint, like so, and macro keys on my keyboard. Also regarding assets, we want to use self-made or public domain meshes. We want to work off starter content whenever possible. And for references, when we need help, we want to look for community projects and your guys' feedback and input. So that was just some ideas I had with my brainstorming, and we'll get to that later. So we have our character here. So we have our armed, which is great. And we have the gun mesh, which is great. We can stick with that for now. And we'll be able to move that to a holster or whatever if we need to. We have a first-person camera, so that's great. We'll be able to use that right out of the box. We have a mesh inherited, which we can set to a third-person mesh if we need to. So we will set that up at some point. And of course we have our capsule component, which works for both third and first person. So it'll kind of be offset between first and third person. I'm gonna set these three variables. I'm gonna put them into stock template category. We might as well start off with the most basic, which is health. So let's create a health variable. Let's make it a float, and let's set our health to a value of 100. For replication, we can set it to rep notify. That way we can run some functions when let's run functions on it. Let's make it editable, and let's set its category to a configuration. Config. That'll be something a user could change on the fly. And let's go to our event graph, and let's make a simple function for death, basically, so we can start rebuilding our respawn system. So let's create a custom event. Whoa, I'm zoomed out. Let's just call this player death, or not player, maybe car death. Let's create a variable to be able to tell if we're dead. That way other functions such as like a death camera and such, and just as a safety, are we dead or are we not dead? So let's go boolean is or are dead. Let's make it a boolean tooltip. True if we are dead, false if health is greater than 0.00, whatever, close enough. And it doesn't need to be replicated. We'll compile. So default it'll be set to false. And so let's put this into a category 2. Let's just call this, I guess you could call it information. Yeah, I could put it information. Let's create a branch on car death. First, let's check, are we already, just like so, nice and simple. I'll try using the comments. They've been broken for me ever since I started using Perforce. But let's see if they work. So, are we already dead? If we aren't, then we want to say that we are, since we're calling a death function. It's probably good enough for now. But let's go back to our onRep health. So obviously that allows us to do a very important thing. What we can do, we can drag in health, and we can say if health is less than or equal to 0.0 branch, then we want to obviously say that we have died. So if true, car death, right? So since it's on rep, so server and clients run the car death function. So that'll allow us to do all sorts of interesting things when we die. For now, let's just do a print string. Let's cast to, maybe we want to get player state. Player name is what we want. And let's append, and we'll just simply say player name has been killed, and then we'll want to destroy ourselves. Destroy. We'll just do a simple debug notify and destroy player. So we have our basic, I don't want to get rid of stock input here. We have our basic health. That'll work just fine for now, but we want to deal with damage too, of course. So let's go to our event graph, and let's go event damage. We want event any damage. You'll notice that they all have a little lightning bolt with a little computer. That means it only runs on the server. I think for now we can probably just keep it simple, and we can just work with any damage, and then we'll move on and make it more complex later. We have event any damage. So if the player takes any damage, and what we'll want to do is we'll want to create a function deal taken damage. And I'll just give it a quick description. Used to apply any damage dealt to the character and modify it if necessary. Good enough. Alright, and we need some input. We obviously need a float called damage dealt. It's kind of long, we can just go with damage, if I can spell it right. Instigator, which will be a controller reference, a damage causer, damage causer, caused by, sounds better. That'll be an actor reference. Let's go back to our event graph. Let's get rid of on-ramp health and the construction script and the viewport. We don't need that for now. So we want to call that, so deal taken damage. We want to call that any damage is done. So let's plug damage into damage, instigator into instigated by, and damage causer into damage caused by. Might as well keep those the same. Damage causer, instigator, might as well keep it the same. Instigated by, that keeps things a little bit better. So first of all, let's check if we are dead or not. If we've already called the death function, then we don't need to worry about this, and we can save ourselves some work. Let's check, are we already dead? So this would be in a game where you don't have immediate respawns. This would be an example of why you would want a check if you're dead or not. If true, we don't need to do anything. If false, however, we want to set our health, and you'll see it says set with notify, so of course it'll run the on-ramp health. And so what we want to do is we want to set our health to itself minus, I have a key for that too, minus damage. We want to clamp that to make sure nothing funky happens. Remember that's part of our watch pre and post conditions to prevent bugs and the uses valids and switch, like create redundancy and prevent bugs. So we're watching our preconditions here. We're making sure that we're not going to apply a value that is outside of its range. So the min is 0 and the max is 1, obviously. Or sorry, the max is 100, obviously. In fact, we could promote that to a variable, because what if we want to change our health later? This is an example of, okay, I'm setting health in different places possibly. I don't want to have to come and change all these max values in clamps. Let's promote that to a variable. Let's call it maximum health, max HP. I'm switching back and forth between capitalized and camel case because I'm doing Java courses in school, so it's been kind of confusing my blueprinting a bit. Be a float, editable, tooltip. This is the max health the character can have, and let's put it under configuration. Config, right? Shortened and compile, and right now 100. Since we promoted it to a variable that automatically goes in there. Pretty nifty. Set health to self minus damage and clamp to 0 max HP. Alright, cool. That should be good enough. We can do some stuff instigated by and damage causer after. Actually, in fact, for now, let's do a quick little debug. Let's do a print string. Let's do an append. Let's take damage causer, get display name. We'll just kind of half-ass it down there for now. Space delt space delt space. I'm gonna take damage space or 2 space, sorry. We want to get a reference to self and get display name. So that'll show how much damage we have taken. I have a cool setup with widgets that we'll get to, but we'll deal with that later. Viewport. Let's add a text render component to help us out for now. Let's just call this player info. Put it above their head. Let's center it in the text setup, and we'll just go something like player name, health, out of max health. Let's go back into our event graph. So we don't want to leave those in there. On event any damage, we deal taken damage, excuse me, today. And then let's simply get our player info, and let's set text when we take any damage to make literal text. What am I looking for here? I forget the name. Format text, that's it. Okay, format text we want. And the format we want is in curly brackets player name dash health slash, and inside of curly brackets again, max health. And you'll see it'll make some inputs for us. So we want player name to be the player name from up here. So let's just kind of do its thing. Let's see, we can clean it up a little bit, but I'm not too worried about cleanliness right now. So player name, and then health will just be health. So we'll get health and plug it into there. And we want to take the to text float, and we want to use grouping max or minimum digits 1, max we'll say is like 4 if we had 1,000 health. Minimum fractional is 0, maximum fractional is 0. We don't want fractional health. And max health will be just max HP. It's actually the exact same way. So just copy and paste that and into max health. So it should, in theory, set our player name dash health out of max health every time we take damage. And we do have a stock gun, but I don't believe it will replicate damage right off the ball. So let's open up a map and let's get some damage causing working. So we have our main menu map. We have the starter maps. Might as well use a starter map, I guess. Template maps. We'll start with the third-person example map. Why not? Save, yes. So let's delete the third-person character, and let's go to our blueprints folder, and let's add our BP player start respawns. Holy, that's big. I gotta edit that. Is screen size scaled? No, maybe. Yes, most definitely. Okay, let's like divide that by 4. Alright, that's better. That's very hard to see. Let's multiply that by 2. Use in-editor scaling, is that the one? Whatever. Anyways, so that's perfectly fine. We have those set up so that it'll be set to the player start tag. So this will be player 1. Actually, you know what we should do is we should set that in the construction script instead, since that doesn't need to be seen in game. Actually, I'm just going to cut everything except event begin play, go to construction script, and paste it in there. And that way it will happen in editor. player 1. There we go. Perfect. And let's duplicate. I'm gonna rename. Whatever. Well, yeah, I'm gonna call it player 1 custom start. Let's duplicate it. Just go Shift W. Control W, I mean. Actually, a little trick. If you hold down Control and drag an arrow, Alt and drag an arrow, it'll duplicate it automatically. This is player, we have 2 player 1's custom starts now. Player 2 custom start. So this will be player 2. Good enough. Set our game mode and world settings to BP game mode. First person character, HUD, player controller, game state, player state looks good to me. So, first of all, let's just play it with one person, see what it looks like. So we have our gun, we don't have a crosshair, so we need to add a crosshair. We have some HUD information that shouldn't be there. I don't know where that's coming from. We have our chat, that's working. Oh, okay, that's just my player name and my ping right from the multiplayer setup. I totally forgot about that, so I should probably make a note of that. But that's cool that chat works. So we need to add a crosshair, and I wanted to eject. We cannot see that information. It's probably set to do not see, owner knows, or owner knows see, or whatever. No. Oh, that's of course because I'm not using BP base character. So let's switch this to BP base character and play. Okay, so he's working just fine. Eject. There we go. So we have player name, health, max health. It's not being set because he's not taking damage. We should probably set that on event begin play. So let's do the same thing. Copy all that. And we're just gonna, let's call this our event graph. We'll move it later, but let's go to an event begin play. On start. Whoa. Format text, set text. I want to set text to all this junk. So we have initial values. We're initializing it. Player state, player name. That'll be a number, obviously, as I'm testing. So just initialize debug text render values. Alright, compile, save everything, play, and so we're player what? I can't quite read that. 258. Alright. Eject. Alright, so player 258 has 100 out of 100 health. Perfect. Let's go to the HUD and add a crosshair because that's bugging me. So let's open BP HUD. So on event begin play, we could create the main HUD widget, which is for the chat, and we check for new player states to give them chat messages. We also want to let's create a sequence in between here. So it'll do the repeating player state check, and then let's go into another sequence and let's create a crosshair so we can find out exactly how to do that properly by going to our stock assets, first person BP, blueprints, first person HUD, and we'll just copy it. Oh yeah, I guess right, it works on event receive draw HUD, so even better, we can just copy this directly. So we'll just copy this Oh, come on. I'll just select it all. Copy, and let's go over here. We'll save the sequence stuff though, because that will be useful. Let's drop that in there. Let's keep this organized. Let's move this down here into this corner. And let's move this into its own corner. Something like that. I like it. Alright, cool. Event receive draw. Alright, cool. Compile, save. Ooh, sequence. Oh, that's fine. Okay, so let's play. We have a crosshair. And although it doesn't shoot exactly where we're aiming, it'll work for our needs. So let's spawn in 2 players and check if health is working. So 260, 261, I can see player. I don't get his player name. That's not good. But I do see his health. Check out the server. I also don't see his player name. We got some warnings. So player state from node set text. Access none, widget HUD, remove. What the heck is going on there? Remove HUD after leaving. Widget HUD, access none. We need to change that to widget, or sorry, BP. No, that's what it should be, I think. Well, that is a weird value. So we should have a reference to it. So let's find references. Set up in-game HUD, set widget HUD. So that's widget multiplayer HUD. So yeah, that's what we're still using. It just accessed none for some reason. Interesting. That's fine though. But however, in our base character, we did not we weren't able to read the variable of player name from the player character. So let's see if we can't feed that in from somewhere else. Let's see here. So let's go player name. Let's put this category under debug. Let's make it a string. Okay, apparently we don't want to call it player name. Player name ref. String, compile, default value of access none. Compile. So let's go to our player state. So we do have our player state set, right? Yep, player state, BP player state. So event let's add a custom event called set player name, and we want it to possibly be multicast, because we basically want to do that. So we want to get player name, get player controller. Actually, no, we want to execute on owning client. Get player controller, cast to, well, that'd be player controller, right? Might need to set it in there. We want to get player character. Pass to base character. Set player name ref underscore ref. Okay. Let's try that out. Compile, save. So that is replicated by default. And this is run on owning client and reliable. Let's go back to our player. And so instead of feeding player name, let's feed, well, that should work. I want to try a delay because it's local to each player. Delay and run it again after a few seconds, because sometimes it can take time to initialize things. So let's wait like 1 second. Compile, save. I just want to test that out because that seems weird to me. Yeah, 262. Okay, now I can see it. And 263. Okay, so I was just going off on a tangent there. So back to BP player state. We don't need that. Base character, we don't need player name ref, and that will work just like so. So we just need a delay is all. So let's just expand this and move this, just switch these around. Boom, boom. Delay 1 second and then set it. We probably even delay like 0.33 seconds. Compile, save. Make sure it's working. Make sure we don't need to call it twice. There we go. 264. So client and server 265. Awesome. We need a better material for that as well, but that's not a big deal. And the only error should be removed from parent. Perfect. So that is working. So damage won't though. Let's check that out. So if we hit our player, obviously no replicated damage is occurring from the client to the server, and from the server to the client, no replicated damage is happening. So since we already have projectile set up, let's work with it. So I'm going to take first person projectile and I'm going to move it to blueprints. Move here. Check for redirectors. Nope. Redirectors. Oh, got a redirector fix up. Alright, so I'm going to rename this to BP test projectile. So we're just going to get it working, replicated, and then we will use it in our guns. So BP test projectile. So it does its standard stuff from the template. It adds physics impulse to whatever it hits, if they are simulating physics, and then it destroys itself. And actually, I'm gonna go back. Since we're getting things now and we're gonna need lots of things that way, I'm gonna make a new folder called guns. I'm gonna set this to, let's set it for green for right now. Teams, I'm not gonna worry about right now. I'm gonna set that back to red. Game modes, I'm gonna set to red, and classes, I'm gonna set to red just for now. And guns, let's move test projectile into there. Check for redirectors, good. Alright, so test projectile. So that is it. Let's change things up a little bit. What we need to do is go to class defaults, and we need to set to replicate, and we want to replicate movement so we can see them. And we want to make sure it's always relevant. Projectiles are very, very relevant to owners. Let's compile and save, and I'm sure it probably won't do anything, but we'll probably be able to see it at least. So it's not adding impulse, but we are able to see it, I assume. See if we can get one poking out of the server's camera. Apparently not. Okay, let's see if we can get, or let's see if the client sees them. Throw that in another window. Okay, so this client does see the servers. I can confirm that. And one problem, however, though, the server does not see the clients. I'm firing straight at them. So we need to fix that. So test projectile. Actually, the reason for this would be where we're spawning it, which would be back in stock input where we do the spawn projectile. Montage play. Let's get rid of the input touch. We don't want any touch crap right now. Let's clean this up a little bit. So, the reason that's working is because it's local to the server and replicating to a client. What we need to do is cut that off right there. The montage we can play just fine. However, and the sound we can play just fine. Let's see if I can move this in. Get actor location, that's all we need. So let's just move this over. Play sound at location of the fighting sound, and that location is get actor location. Perfect. Alright, so what we need to do is we need a switch has authority. That's not what I wanted. We need a switch has authority. There we go. I want to bring it down. So if we're the server, we want to spawn a projectile. On remote, however, we need to add a custom event. I'm just going to do it right here for now. Custom event? Yeah. Which will be server spawn projectile. Is that what this is called here? Spawn projectile? Yeah. So server spawn projectile. And all it needs to do is run on server, and we want it to be reliable, and basically it just feeds into the switch has authority, and then it calls itself server fight. There we go. And then it goes on to spawn projectile. Spawn actor. That should work. Let's find out. Compile, save, play. So, can we see the clients? Very hard to tell. No, it looks like still not. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Yep. So the server can now see. That's kind of funny. The server can now see the client's projectiles, and we can make them all over the place. And let's check it out. The server can also fire at the client and put them all over the place, and they are replicating perfectly. Awesome. So that is good. We have replicated bullets now. However, what else to do with them? On event hit only works on things that are simulating physics, which, you know what, I don't know if our stock character even does. I believe no. Simulate physics? No. Mesh? Where's our mesh? Simulate physics? No. Gun? No, I didn't think so. So, and mesh? No. So we can't use an event hit. Well, we can, but not right now. what we can do is, before we destroy the actor, we want to apply damage. Right now we can just apply regular damage. Apply damage and then maybe destroy actor, we'll see. So the damaged actor is going to be the actor that is hit. So we take the hit and we're going to break it. So break. So the hit actor is the damaged actor. Base damage is going to have to be calculated. So, since we won't be overriding damage in any way right now or using radial damage, we can just use a base value. So let's just add a value to our test projectile called, we'll say damage strength. Kind of long. Damage applied. We'll just go damage. It's too generic. Applied DMG. Whatever. Who cares if it's long? Applied damage. This is config. It'll be a float. Compile, and we'll give it a stock damage of like 5. So base damage will be applied damage. We want that to be edible as well. Applied damage. Event instigator. I guess we could probably. Since each character is owned and replicated, all we need to do basically is on event begin play, let's create a new variable called owned pawn, owned car, since we're with characters, and it will simply just be a reference to itself. So BP base character reference. So we will want to just simply extend from here and do set owner. So who owns this character? Well, owned character is the owner. And this needs to be replicated. So let's set it to replicated and compile and save. Should be good there. So now we can go to our projectile and we can actually, sorry, I have that totally wrong. We should cut that out and delete it from here. That should go on the projectile. So let's go to its event. Yeah, its event graph on event begin play. So when it's first spawned, we set the owner to owned character, which is BP base character, and it is replicated. And then what we want to do, however, is, so I don't know if this is gonna work. Because what we'll want to do is we'll want to go back into our base character and we'll basically want to nope, I've got it. Okay, let's go to where we're spawning projectiles and test projectiles. Let's just quickly put this into a function. So let's just make a custom event called set owner. Is there already a set owner function? Oh, I guess, yeah, you can't have it the same as that. Set own pawn, sure. Paste that back, set owner to own character replicated. back in base character, what we can do is when we spawn the actual projectile, we can drag off of it and we can set owner. We can call that function. Or set own, what do we call it? Yeah, set own upon. However, we need a reference back. So I guess we would need to first of all set owned character. And then set the owner to that. So let's add an input here, which will be the owned pawn. Owning pawn. BP base character reference and connect that up. Now we can work this in. So all we gotta do is get a reference to self. So now every time we spawn a weapon, we can say who the owner is. Perfect. All right, so that should work just fine. So now we can say the event instigator is the owned character. Perfect. So the owned character. Put it up here, and then we want to get controller, so the player controller basically, and that is the event instigator because it's looking for controller reference. That should work. And the damage causer will be self, obviously, so just a reference to self. I should make a hotkey for that. I use that more than I would think. And damage type, we're not really dealing with that yet. We could promote it to a variable called damage type, which would be of the type damage type. And we'll probably override that that class to create our own blueprint. So for now, we'll just call it info. Or to do info. There we go. To do info. Perfect. All right. So we're applying damage and then destroying the actor. If on an event hit, we hit a physics object. If we don't hit a physics object, however, then we don't want to add the impulse. We just want to apply the damage and then destroy the actor. Let's see how that works out. So we'll play. So he has 100 health. So we dealt, I don't see it on my console, but I dealt 5 damage to BP base character 12 and BP test projectile 20 dealt 23, and the character just died. And it said he respawned, or at least he's still in the game, but no, he is simply sitting here in a little, I don't even know what. We obviously have to set up the respawn system to work properly. As you can see, we got some ears there, but at least that works. Let's see, the text is not changing, which really helps in debugging. Okay, so it works from the server to the client. We can see the health go down till we call the death event, and you can see has been killed. Remember that, yeah, there you go, has been killed, blah blah blah, has been killed. Perfect. Weird, I dealt damage after the player had been killed. We might want to do a check for that. But so dealing, or not dealing damage, but rather updating that string, which will be very helpful, does not work networked. So let's fix that. In the last few minutes of this tutorial, it's starting to get long. So we might be able to get away, since that's really not gameplay important, we might be able to get away with Ooh, max HP is not replicated either. I noticed that. I don't think it really needs to be, but just thinking. That the server's print setting that fine, so we'll need to do it there too. But actually, that's the one that I'm more worried about, is where we deal damage. So what we want to do for the set text, let's move it over. We'll do a switch. Well, you know, event any damage only happens on the server. So what we need to do actually is just create a custom event called set player debug info. And I don't even think it needs to be replicated in it. We'll just do that, and we will call it from the server set player debug info. Actually, it might need to be replicated. So when we call that, since you can event any damage won't happen on the client, we want to do a switch auth, and authority does that. Remote will be custom event server set player debug info, runs on server. Let's make it reliable for now. The remote calls that server set player debug info, and all it does is the same thing. It just called from the server. Let's see if that fixes it. So the client does not see the updated text, unfortunately. So no. Let's go back. Where did I do that exact same switch auth little hack? Over here. Put this into the switch has authority, like that. Exact same setup. Maybe I just mixed those up. Client. So we are not seeing updated text info, unfortunately. So yeah, executes on run on server reliable, run on server reliable, on remote. So it must be because that cannot be called on remote at all. So what we need to do is we can call it there, that's fine, but let's go to deal taken damage. I don't think that will work either at the end if we call what did I even call that now? Update debug player. Oh, I can't even remember what I called it now. Set player debug info. Set debug player info. Alright. Compile, save, play. Interesting. So yeah, I'm thinking we could instead go to the test projectile, can apply damage, and then we can use the same thing, the owned character, set player debug info. We can call that, and then destroy actor. Let's see if that works. Although that's only being called on the server as well, isn't it? No, event hit. We could try calling it before. Whoops. Well, save, play, and we would only see it after the second shot if that worked. But no. So let's get rid of that and just leave it the way it was. Let's go back to our character. Totally in front of me the entire time, I didn't even think about it. We have our on-rep health function that we can use. Every time the health is changed, both the server and the client, the other way around, however, execute this. So, I guess true and false, but either way, if our health is less than or greater than 0, so if we're dead, then we call death. If not, we update player info. So all we do is we just call that custom event we set up. No difference, we just call it from there, because it's able to be called locally from the server as well as on the client side. So now we can see the server info, and if we go to the server, we can his info go down as well, the client. So that works. So I'm going to leave it off there for now, and in the next video, if you guys want to, you can request what you want to see next, but I think I'll do respawning so that players can respawn at the respawn points, and maybe work in 4 players or 3 players, because 3 players is a good way to check that 2 clients are working together. So yeah, we'll probably do something like that next time. So anyways, thanks again for watching from the team here at UnrealTek.net. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe. We also take donations. We're on social media, and the links on your screen. If you dislike this video, let us know so we can improve them based on your input. So see you next time, and remember,